I think we'll get started. So this project, the event here today is part of the LUNZ Grassland Project. I'm Holly Shearman. I head up the Livestock and Farm of the Future programmes at Innovation for Agriculture and the Royal Agricultural Society of England. So we're a partner within this project and we're helping facilitate these on-farm demonstrations at a number of the farms across the project. We have some resources at the back if anyone's interested in what we do, or you can sign up to our newsletter, which is completely free to sign up to, and it will show you where we're at for the rest of the year. We run study tours and demonstration events across the country. AHDB are also here today with a number of new publications, which Tom can talk to you about. Where is Tom?
At the back.
Oh, he's at the back. We've got Heather here too. But I shall pass over to Zoe now to give you a quick overview of the LUNZ Grassland Project. We'll then hear from Stuart a bit about the farm. We're then going to go on the farm tour whilst it's not raining, hopefully, and then come back here and we'll hear more about the reporting from the project.
So I'm from the University of the West of England in Bristol, and we are part of 5 different universities that are running the LUNZ Grassland Project. So LUNZ is land use for net zero nature and people, and it's one of 5 research projects looking at the transformation of land use to reach net zero by 2050.
We are tenants of the Duchy of Cornwall. We've been here for 15 years and we were tenants of the Duchy in Oxfordshire and moved the farm 15 years ago. We've been on the Waitrose contract for nearly 27 years now, and having a future ahead of you, so you're able to then put some energy into how that future looks. Some longer term commitments to dairy, to the young stock, the cows, and sort of the grazing and the whole farm. So the farm's changed a lot in 15 years from when we came here, and I'll talk more about that as we go out onto the farm. We milk 250 pedigree Holsteins. Numbers haven't really changed since we moved. We're 11,500 litres, milk twice a day, calve all year round. And we're sex semen and beef. So the sex semen to breed our replacements, so it's 6 or 7 heifer calves per month, the rest are beef calves. So as we go out, you'll see the new shed that we're building with a calf grant to house the calves, to take them out of the hutches in the yard. So there's a lot of focus on the welfare of the animals and the well-being of the cows, from how they're housed to how they graze, and what we've done in the grazing, on the grazing platform, and with the grazing infrastructure, and how we manage the cows at the grazing. So when we came here, it was 400 cows and a flying herd, very intensive sort of system with the cows were managed intensively, the whole farm was managed intensively. So the hedges were cut annually to about 5 feet. So when we came, we changed that with sort of 3 or 4 year cutting on hedges. So the hedges have gone from being you could see over most of the hedges to suddenly being 3 metre high, huge, great hedges, which you'll see. And why that's important is just from a carbon perspective and a biodiversity and wildlife habitat creation. And that runs out into our 3 metre margins, which the margins are only so we have an arable part and a grazing livestock area. The livestock area is badger fence, so you'll see the badger fence. Cows have always grazed, but now they graze a little bit differently. So we put less into the grazing, so we don't put haven't put any fertiliser on the grazing for 7 years. We don't use any herbicides to manage the weeds in the grazing. So now what we sort of found with that, a few years ago, for example, we had a lot of docks in the grazing. You start spraying docks and you end up getting more docks. As soon as we stop spraying docks, now we don't really have a dock problem. And that's how we manage the cows has changed how we manage the grass. So without the fertiliser and the herbicides, we've started getting better soil health and lifting that benefit straight from the soil up into the cows and the health of the herd and the heifers that graze at the pastures. So now we're reducing wormers and fly controls as well, so start getting those out of the system. And we went cold turkey with the fertiliser, which everyone thinks is mad, but I kind of knew we had so much fertility and growth we didn't need. We were sort of putting fertiliser on just to grow the grass away from the cows, which seemed a bit counterintuitive really. So now it's just everything's cycling more naturally. So as soon as you get those things out of the out of the system, you just start getting better nutrient cycling, better water infiltration, and everything's working more naturally. And the biggest part of that, it's working for a lot less money than it was before. So spending less on it, getting better results. The heifers are growing really well, the cows are healthy, and we've changed the way that their behaviour and how they graze. So they're a different grazing animal, and we've refined the stature of the herd. So we're still pedigree Holsteins, but we've genomically tested every single cow since 2014. So we've got a really big depth of knowledge of the cows and on the data we have with the cows. So then refining the stature and changing the breed or changing the type of cow we have has just meant we've got a cow more suitable to walking down the tracks to get to the grazing. Because when we've got this has been down for 8 years, this grass, so a little bit of clover. We've overseeded it with chicory and plantain and more clover, but limited success with that. But it's just a good thick cover, really. So I think when the badger fence helps, we have odd fields of maize inside the badger fence, but mostly on that whole 93 acres for the cattle. Some of it's cut. So the further field is a new lay in 24, so that's down for second cut, and then it'll probably be opened up for grazing then. Where the cows are now, that was our second field we did. They're all sort of 1 hectare paddocks, and that was planted in winter of 25, and we took a lot of the willow from there, and that we wood chipped all of that. So the hedge, where we put the wood chip, the hedge survived better. Where there was no wood chip, but out here it costs a lot of money. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, it costs a lot of money to do wood chip along the hedge, the whole hedge. So we've done all the trees because they're sort of, they're big trees, expensive trees. The problem with big trees is they take a lot to get them going. Few thistles, but when we came here, there wasn't a weed in sight. And when we came, I thought, oh, this is great, look how clean it is. But all that meant was it was just being sprayed every week. And, now that's a bit of a nightmare because you realise what you've lost, and trying to get that back. And the hedge, cutting the hedges after Christmas is a good part. Still very dry. The worm count out here has gone up in 3 years. So when was it 21 and 24, the worm count was up by 120%. And that's just from changing the management. A bird population here, and you go to other places, around, and the hedges were cut in September, and all that food's gone. Where are the birds going to be? They're not going to be there, are they? We've got, I'm not sure we'll get there, but the 3 metre margins that are all winter bird feed